Philadelphia Eagles.
Philly.
It's another one. So people are trying to explain away what happened.
Ooh, there are some weird reports at the moment.
Dom. No, I could buy Dom being the reason why things fell apart for the Eagles.
I still think that was a bad miscarriage of injustice.
I agree.
I feel like, aside from anything else, I feel like what happened was wildly mischaracterized because of slow-mo replay. If you watch what happened, I don't have any real problem with what he did. The guy stood up, got in his face, he just sort of backed him, he just split him up and went, back up, guys. And that was it. And then, whatever, it was Dre Greenlaw, stuck his hand in his face and and now it's like, we got to ban Dom for life. What? It's not like he, body slammed him out of the way or anything.
I saw Dom down at the Senior Bowl, stood next to him.
Yeah.
He's an impact player. He has an impact.
He's an aura
Yes.
guy.
Yes. So the most recent report is that Nick Sirianni, his temper is just so out there and outlandish that Dom is his calming influence.
Yes.
So once the calming influence of Dom was not there to reel Sirianni back in, all hell broke loose on the Eagles sideline and in the locker room.
Yeah. Once Dom was physically removed from Sirianni's presence, Sirianni was unable to control himself in any way, shape, or form.
It's a loose cannon.
Right. Which left the entire Eagles organization to spiral out of the league, essentially.
So to fix the Eagles, we start by getting Dom back on the sideline.
Which he is, right? It was just it was a permanent. Haven't they banned all those guys now? Like, you're not allowed.
I'd give him a different role.
Okay. Change his role.
Isn't he a part like D-line coach? I mean, we might need to change his job title to get him back out there. He could be the get back coach. I don't care, but he's something.
We got to get him back on the sideline.
We got to get Dom back on the sideline.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. What else for Philadelphia?
Well, yeah, we probably need more than that. It's
secondary. I mean, for all of the credit that we gave the Eagles in 2022 for the way they built that team, the way that they stole James Bradbury off the
Giants.
I was going to say
waiver wire,
the trash heap, the waiver wire. Stole him for pennies on the dollar. But heading into 23, doubled down by paying him a lot of money. That came back to bite. Bradbury looked cooked at the end of last season. The whole defense really looked cooked. The middle of the defense was horrendous.
Yeah.
Nobody was on the same page. But it does feel like the back seven as a whole needs work.
Yeah, I mean, the Bradbury thing, they went from one end of the spectrum to the other. They had an elite player playing for not much money the year before, and then they somehow found a way of bringing both him and Slay back in an offseason where everybody thought at least one of them would be leaving, if not both. And they ended up with a guy playing badly for a lot of money, which is, the exact opposite impact of what he had the year before. So do you just put that down to the variance of cornerback play in the NFL, particularly when you're not getting the pressure that you are typically accustomed to, particularly when your linebackers are all injured and you're playing guys that are off the street, so their job is being made more difficult? Or do you say that was indicative of a guy that's on his way out, even though he's only 30 years old or whatever, and we need a complete overhaul, we need to get younger, we need to get better?
30, it's ancient at corner.
Yeah, but he's
30.
He's a year removed from that Pro Bowl type of season, right up until the Super Bowl hold,
Yeah, I think that the challenging thing about the Eagles is, we talk to a lot of people around the league, and without getting too specific, because I can't, there's just there was inner turmoil in the building, right? And I don't know how much was within the coaching staff. Remember, they were like 11-3 or whatever, and they're firing Sean Desai. They're putting Matt Patricia in there to call a defense that's not his defense, and everything was just odd. And there's all sorts of rumors swirling about why and where the power struggle is and between whom and what have you. So solve that first, right? I mean, this is a team that was plays away from winning a Super Bowl in 2022.
Right.
And the idea that Nick Sirianni was actually talked about as being on the hot seat, which from the outside looking in, to me seems crazy. I don't care how bad they collapsed last year. They were plays away from winning a Super Bowl in 2022, and I think Sirianni's clearly a big part of that. So, figure out that piece of it first and get everybody on the same page, and then we'll start solving some of the personnel questions.
But I think the fact that on the one hand, it's crazy because they almost won a Super Bowl. On the other hand, it actually makes total sense because every indication of the tail end of last season screams this is like a coaching collapse. Like this thing is in a death spiral, and the only guy capable of pulling it out of the tailspin isn't at the moment. And every move, in fact, that he's making to try and stop it seems to be making it worse. Like Patricia coming in and taking over the defense. Now, okay, that was last season. They didn't change him. I think on the balance of things, that's probably the right decision. So let's see what happens this year. Number one, everybody that was part of the problem on the defensive side is no longer there, and Vic Fangio's in the building. That should be huge. Like getting a guy like Fangio, who is still the best proponent of a defense that's still one of the most impactful schemes in the league, even if maybe it's going out of vogue a little bit at the moment. He's still the godfather of that system. He's still the best version of it. They still have a lot of talent on defense, and like I think the reasons for him wanting out of Miami and him wanting into Philadelphia are legitimate, sort of personal. They're not like power struggle reasons.
And so Bradbury and Slay could be a good fit for him anyway, right? So just rolling it back with those. I mean, they both have a couple of years left on decent sized contracts. So rolling back with those guys, the pass rush too. It's another one of those on paper, it still looks pretty good, but the Eagles have always kept up with it, right? So even though they drafted Jalen Carter last year and he looked good, even though he tailed off a little bit at the end of the season. But you still have, Fletcher Cox, technically a free agent. Do you get you steal one more year out of Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham? Like they still have to replace, part of their defensive line rotation.
I mean, on paper, you were losing a lot of the heart and soul of that defense in terms of Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. Like both those guys have been on the way out for a while. They kind of, they brought back Fletcher Cox last season for a deal that on the field didn't really look justified, but in terms of mentorship and that kind of thing, it made some sense. Do you keep either of them around? I mean, Brandon Graham still played reasonably well last year, albeit in a much diminished role. I would not hate bringing him back at all if he's willing to do it. But at some point, all these young players that you drafted, like the Georgia defense from a couple of years ago, actually needs to start playing like the Georgia defense from a couple of years ago. Otherwise, none of it matters.
I think it's another team, though, that's stay the course. It's similar to what we said about the Cowboys and the Bills. Stay the course. I mean, when we go back and we're like, what happened to the Eagles, who had the best record in the league more than halfway through the season? It was not a personnel. I mean, other than injuries on defense, it was not really a personnel issue. No, we knew there was a coaching change on the defensive side of the ball. So their two coordinators got head coaching jobs after the Super Bowl run. The defense had a coordinator change when they were 11-3, whatever it was. And offensively, the whole time we're like, man, this just doesn't feel right, and they're not handling the blitz, and Brian Johnson's offense is just doesn't have the same type of answers and explosiveness that Shane Steichen's offense had the previous year. So Kellen Moore on offense now, Vic Fangio on defense. I think that at least moves them in the right direction.
Yeah, and let's remember, Jalen Hurts was playing hurt all year. Like,
yes,
all the way through that season, he was injured and getting through it. And
the word lethargic kept coming to mind when I was watching. Like, he just felt like he was just getting by. Yeah. The offense felt lethargic. There was no rhythm, all of it. So, I mean, say what you want about Kellen Moore. I don't think he's been an elite coordinator. I don't think he's been bad. But it should be better than I think it was last year, because they still have those pieces. We saw, on the positive side, we saw Devontae Smith these last couple of years become a great complement to A.J. Brown. As a 1-2 punch, they're right up there among the best in the league. Dallas Goedert as a 1-2-3 punch from a receiver standpoint with Goddard at tight end. That's a good starting point. They'll have another good offensive line. Once again, they had to figure out right guard last year. Kerem Jurgens was fine, especially when he's surrounded by the rest of the talent. They got to figure out center, assuming Jason Kelce is going to officially retire. Did he officially retire, or he just...
It's not official, I don't think, but it's looking that way.
So we're expecting Kelce to retire. So does Jurgens move to center, and it becomes a guard question? The Eagles, you use the word future-proof a lot. I mean, the Eagles have always been 1 year ahead as far as drafting and anticipating those things. So they do a nice job of building that depth.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a solid job of at least projecting a succession plan in various spots. Now, the problem is that doesn't always work, right? Like, Nakobe Dean was supposed to be the succession plan at inside linebacker last year, and he was hurt almost all year. And they had to bring a bunch of guys off the street and try and make that work instead, like Shaquille Leonard, Zach Cunningham, etc. And linebacker was a problem for them all the way through the season. Now, does Nakobe Dean, A, stay healthy this year, and B, if he does he play well? That's a big question mark. I don't think that they know the answer to that yet.
All right, let's predict. They're going to take Kamari Lassiter. We got to get all the Georgia guys.
But look, I mean, almost
Amarius Mims in the first round.
The only one of those Georgia defensive players that has so far justified even the pick has been Jalen Carter, and even he tailed off pretty badly in the second half of the season. So that group as a collective, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean, I mean, Keely Ringo, if he ends up becoming a starter, like that group needs to justify shopping in the Georgia defense. Otherwise, they've got real problems because they basically, like half the defense was taken from that team.
As far as draft picks at 22, we know the Eagles like offensive and defensive line. That's where they like to go. Is this the year though that they try to get younger at corner? Again, my annual battle with Eagles fans when I try to put a corner in the first round mock draft, or I tried to give them Brian Branch last year and they almost ripped my head off. Maybe that would have been good before we knew Jalen Carter would fall. But would they actually grab a player in the secondary or at corner, the Quinyon Mitchells of the world, if Terrion Arnold is there? I think Arnold's probably going higher, but Kool-Aid, if he's there, do they go corner? I mean, I don't know that we've seen enough from Eli Ricks or Keely Ringo to be like, oh, of course they're the future once Bradbury and Slay are gone. So it could be a year to go that route. If they're thinking about Lane Johnson potentially retiring in the next couple of years, do they go with an Amarius Mibbs, again from Georgia, as a tackle there? Because they like to, remember they grabbed Andre Dillard a year early before they were going to replace Jason Peters. So tackle and edge, defensive line generally could be in play again. I'm just curious if they do actually go to the cornerback room.
You know who the last first-round corner that the Eagles drafted was?
Who?
Lito Shepherd.
Lito, yeah. There was somebody from that era. I was going to that era. What was it, like 01?
02. That was the year where they did the Green Bay thing. They double dipped and they got Lito Shepherd in the first round and Sheldon Brown in the second round, and that was their like cornerback duo for a while.
Yeah, so don't attack me.
They actually went 1, 2, 3.
So Howie would never draft a corner in the first round, but maybe he should.
They actually went DB 1, 2, 3 picks that year. 2 second rounders and a first rounder. Michael Lewis was the other safety.
Wow. And they went to the NFC Championship the next year or two.
I mean, that draft, that went Lito Shepherd, Michael Lewis, Sheldon Brown, Brian Westbrook as their first 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. That's not bad.
Oh, solid.
If they do that again, they'll be in good shape this year.
And then, they went to the Super Bowl in 04. That would set the foundation for a Super Bowl run in 04. What do they have, 4 NFC championships in a row? 1 Super Bowl? I think it was. Anything else for the Eagles here? Have we fixed the Eagles?
I mean, yeah, they need a lot of defensive
Georgia players, tell them to play better.
Georgia players got to play better. They need, I think, some defensive depth. They've always been good on the defensive line because they keep trying to get as many bodies there that are playing well as possible. So if they're losing Fletcher Cox and or Brandon Graham, even if the Georgia guys take a step forward, they need to start backfilling that. They need to start replacing some of those guys. So second, they've got 2 second-round picks. They've got a third-round pick. If they're spending one of those on defensive line, that's not a bad spot.
I agree. So defensive line depth. I also think with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith as the 1-2, all of the other depth receivers, including Julio Jones, are all free agents. I think the Eagles could use one of those deep threats. So all of the speed receivers, the Ladd McConkeys and the Ricky Pearsalls of the world that we mentioned for a lot of different teams, I'm not saying get them super high, but if those guys are around in the third, maybe. I don't know where they're going to end up landing, but those speed receivers, man, I think they could use as a nice complement to Devontae and A.J. Brown. So I'd grab one of those guys.
And then the question is, what is the random throwaway, low-cost move that they're going to do to solve the running back spot?
Good question. So DeAndre Swift they got for $2 million last year. That's a good pickup. He played well overall. Kenneth Gainwell still there. Boston Scott officially a free agent. Do you bring back Rashad Penny for $1.3 million again? What did he have? Did he have any snaps?
Almost
like
none.
10?
Yeah.
there'll be a low-cost running back move.
There will be.
How's that?
I mean, I think this is probably higher cost than they're willing to go. I kind of wonder if Austin Eckler is going to be an absolute steal for somebody this offseason as a pickup.
Yeah.
Remember he represented, when he first signed the deal, that he then got pissed off that the deal was not a fair, compensation for his performance. But it's like, okay, I wouldn't ever give a running back a second contract above what Austin Eckler got. Like, I think that was like the high watermark of what I would be willing to go to for a veteran running back. Otherwise, I would just go draft, just keep getting young guys in the draft and keep getting low price free agents. So Eckler signed that deal, wildly outperformed it, was looking for more money, didn't get it, got hurt, came back, didn't look like the same guy again, and will now be hitting free agency, at basically 28, 29 years old, coming off a bad year where everything is sort of looking negative from a team perspective. But I kind of wonder if that's actually going to lead to him getting underpaid again and proving to be a steal again. Like, maybe a team that's willing to go to a kind of mid-price deal for Eckler actually ends up getting one of the best running backs in the league, who's an incredible receiving option.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. The teams that run the ball a lot and have the running quarterback, I'm more likely to pair them with decent running backs. Like, are they another team that takes a shot on J.K. Dobbins the same way they did the Rashad Penny thing? Do you get him cheap and just hope he is healthy and becomes explosive again, everything that Baltimore wanted him to become? But yeah, I think Derrick Henry it's not in the Eagles' nature to make any kind of big impact move. Is there any chance that would change? And you say we've got Jalen Hurts, we have Derrick Henry for the same reason why we've paired Henry with, say, the Ravens. Here's a different way to win. We run the ball a lot and effectively. We would use him well. Is there any reason for the Eagles to go against the grain, go against what their normal tendency, and actually go after a Derrick Henry?
I doubt it.
Okay. Just had to pose it. Eagles, fixed. Stay the course. Get Dom back out there. Add your depth. Get the new coordinators going. Keep trucking along.